Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be doing overview and thoughts on the producer live letter number 53. This is take number 3 on Twitch, so excuse me if my patience here at the start of the video is not what it usually is. This was a straight Q&A. There were 70 questions that were answered of varying usefulness, but I gotta say overall, there's some pretty big questions that were answered here. Some I'm not super excited about, and some I'm really glad they decided to take. Without further ado, though, we're going to be using the official forums for this. We did also use the unofficial translations from the Reddit Discord, so thank you to Shiniton and Luna for providing translations over there. And in fact, they're still working on some translations as well, so I'm sure there's other little details and wording in there that could also add supplement to what we're going to be reading right now. First question right off the bat, Ninja, it sucks. What are you doing? And I'm glad they decided to take this. They took it really seriously. That was the only question across all of them that had a slide. Like, they prepared a slide to talk about Ninja. And they gave us a little bit of some, I guess, a look at what they're going to actually be doing without giving us too much information. Ninjutsu and Mudra combinations being disrupted by the global cooldown. So clipping the GCD is a big problem when it comes to Ninja. It feels very unsatisfying to have to delay a combo because of that. And on top of that, Ninjutsu, it's influenced by lag on top of that. So it's really annoying to try and balance it based on the way it is now. So the playstyle of putting together a Mudra will remain, but they're not going to be weaved between global cooldowns. Now, that leaves a few things open for interpretation, and they did list a couple of options, but the one that's specifically listed here is use a combo, use Ninjutsu, return to combo. Now, there's also, the question is here, are they referring to a full combo, or are they talking about an individual GCD? Because this reads to me what they're saying right here like dancer steps. And according to the Reddit translation, they did say they learned a lot about dancer steps in regards to chaining together abilities for one final attack. They had also considered, I think they mentioned, doing it so that it's just not interrupted between global cooldowns. So we got to see where this actually ends up going. But instead of clipping the GCD, it kind of just existing as its own thing separately seems to be the solution that they're going for. But it's not final. We don't know what they're actually going to be doing, and I'm sure ninjas are going to have all sorts of feedback on what they'd actually like to see happen with this one. Just expect some adjustments in 5.1 and 5.08. They even mentioned a little bit later down here that because of Trick Attack, you know, obviously they need to be very careful when adjusting Ninja DPS as long as Trick Attack is in existence, because of how much influence it has. So they're going to be increasing Ninja's damage in 0.08. So expect some potency buffs across the board there. But the overall playstyle adjustments don't expect until 5.1. Heck, they even say that things they change in 5.08 might just be band-aids in terms of potency until they rework things in 5.1. So don't be surprised if you see something go up in potency, then go back down in potency, or go down in potency, then go back up in potency, or any sort of potency changes that might be happening. They're also considering changing the way their combos work. In the Reddit Discord translation, they specifically mentioned going to having 2 3-part combos instead of what they have now. A lot of people were surprised to see them go back to Shadowfang being a 2-part combo. And I even had a question not too long ago of someone asking, why don't they just like throw the Shadowfang dot into one of the combos that they already have, like maybe the Huton combo or something. And then you have to adjust it based on how often you use Huton, and there's other things that need to happen there. Overall, I'm at least glad to see they took one of the most important job balancing questions and made it the first thing they answered. How it actually turns out, whole nother story. That's up for waiting till 5.08 and 5.1. So please look forward to it. Hi. Question number 2, Samurai. Another balance, big topic in regards to balance. You know, asking about Hagakure, why is Shoha the way it is, and straight up, we should do more damage. So in regards to Shoha, they kind of agree it's just not great to use. So for 5.1, they're looking to allow meditation stacks to be accumulated through different means. Now that's a bit more in depth than what I remember reading from the initial Reddit, but a Reddit translation. But that doesn't, I don't know that makes Shoha more fun to use. Like, if you can just obtain meditation from doing other things, like what would they do? Maybe whenever you use Third Eye and you actually get open eyes or something like that, it also gives you meditation. I guess they could do that. You should be using Third Eye relatively frequently. So maybe that'll be the adjustment. They don't say that, but that's my prediction based on meditation stacks being accumulated through a different means. That's the first means that comes to mind for me. Hagakure is the cause of the skill rotation becoming too difficult, and they're talking about old Hagakure here. So Hagakure now, and he mentioned this during the other translation as well, is that right now it is literally just there to reset your rotation for reopeners. So you don't have to have a different rotation depending on how many sends you had when the boss jumped, or between pulls in a dungeon, or things like that. So specifically, as you can see here, dungeon boss fights is the big thing that's mentioned in regards to that. Samurai's Burst is designed around benefiting from receiving party buffs. Black Mage's balance around being the only caster without raise and party buffs. We believe Samurai is also in a similar situation, so its potencies will be slightly adjusted in 5.08. So yes, Samurai will be getting some buffs before 5.1, and then getting some additional stuff in 5.1 that may cause them to readjust certain things. Either way, Samurais, you're getting something. So you have something to look forward to. Hopefully, it ends up being what you need, because Monk's a bit of a monster right now. So Samurai is kind of, they're holding on, but, you know, just praying that's something. But at least you give some guarantee that there's something will happen. that's the least I can promise you right now. So then we have question number 3 is about Summoner. And actually, they answered these questions in the priority with which they are trying to balance jobs. They say Ninja's top priority, Samurai's second priority, and Summoner's third. So those seem to be the 3 jobs they're most concerned about. Refreshing dot timing when you activate Dreadworm Trance and Firebird Trance. I almost combined the 2. Even when using Try Disaster, any plans to reduce the amount of button pressing or adjusting the duration of dots. So it's too busy. Dot durations, just overall awkwardness. I'm surprised there's no mention of Eggy Assaults, because I've seen some people have mentions about that as well. But the dev team is working on adjusting the difficulty of how many buttons Summoner needs to press. Specifically regarding dots, there's been some different discussions, dot durations being extended, or reworking the potency on Ruin to be even higher depending on the number of dots inflicted on the target, so it's a bit more rewarding when the dots are actually applied. This is all just under consideration at this point, but whatever they decide to do, they'll do in 5.08, but they're not 100% ready to talk about it yet. He can only give you some things that have happened discussion-wise behind the scenes. So all this stuff is tentative. None of this stuff may make it. Maybe everything they do is completely different. We won't know until at least 5.08 and 5.1. But I'm glad to see that they are immediately taking the most important job-related questions. This one has me nervous. Bard was made easier to manage in 5.0, but since the number of songs hasn't increased, the job seems to be lacking in party support. Do you have any plans to add songs that'll support the party? In 5.0, we removed most party synergy effects, but left actions such as Nature's Min to differentiate it from Machinist. Giving Bard more party utility would make Bard closer to Dancer and would require Bard's damage to be lowered. The current situation is that it has some party utility and some decent damage, which is hard to balance. We'd like to consider player opinion, so please continue to provide feedback. On the Reddit translation, it seemed like there was more consideration being made here than just please continue to provide feedback, but they acknowledge that if they go too far with Bard has at several points in this game's past been the utter god of the ranged DPS role. It's had its moments where it's completely underwhelming, but it's also had absolute dominance over the role in the past. Obviously, when it was the only one in 2.x, you know, that's obvious, but even then, for a while, it was just stronger than all the melees too, even back then. Then in 3.4, it became dominant again, and through most of 4.x, most people just didn't want to play Machines because they didn't like how it played, and Bard was also insanely strong during that time. So they're trying to avoid those situations again. So it's a very, very, very delicate balance. So they're going to keep looking at feedback, but it's something that they want everyone to understand why it is the way it is right now. This one actually starts with a thank you. Thanks for the adjustments made towards Astros. Both the controllability and heal potency has been increased, feels much better. Do you have any plan to add new effects to the cards? The one remaining point for Astros. And they said, truly sorry for the initial feel, but the card changes are based on player feedback from the previous expansion. Players did not want, and I quote, useless cards. It does indeed lower the feeling of drawing a good card, but if we make certain cards significantly more powerful, we'll return to fishing just for the good ones. We decided to simplify it. They're keeping the cards the way they are, and I agree with that decision on a personal note. I've been of the opinion that 5 not balances on a balance, while people can cite specific situations the other ones were used for, that the job ultimately boiled down to that in most applicable situations, and then understanding how to use the ones you got that weren't balances as best as possible. So it looks like Astro's at a stable point. Whether or not they make further potency adjustments or anything, who knows, but the card system in particular is staying as is. Major updates thanks for the major updates made to PvP through 5.0 and 5.05. I mean, there were certainly updates. I mean, removing heavy metal and light metal was it's definitely a major update, but this person's enthusiastic. We'd like to hear about future PvP stuff. Lots of feedback that there aren't enough actions, so they're planning on increasing the number of actions in PvP to 16. They'll give tanks group defensive abilities, healers more AoE heals, and giving all jobs self-healing actions in the form of charged actions for emergency situations. I'm adding in some verbiage there because it's from the Reddit translation as well. But they did say that they would be, these are all things they said in that translation as well. Additionally, in 5.1, there's going to be a new PvP content. In the Reddit translation, they specifically said 5.15, and they're calling it Seal Rock 2 internally. Now, we've known since 4.2 they were working on a new Seas map, which is my favorite PvP mode that is not the Feast. So we've been waiting for that map for a long time. We've known about it in existence. And so to hear that Seal Rock 2 is what it's being called internally has me very excited, because that has always been my favorite frontline large-scale PvP mode, and I look forward to actually diving into that in 0.1. At least it's not Shatter, man. At least it's not Shatter. Anyway, excited for that, actually. That's big thumbs up from me. Question number 7. There were no tank-related adjustments in 5.05. Are there any plans to adjust them? I think the balance is there, but I'd like some more damage to Warrior. I don't believe there are any differences in the tanks that are considered major disparities, and I'd agree. I've seen most tanks saying that while there's like, maybe a Just Living Dead, so it's more friendly to players who aren't prepared for it, or maybe, give 10 potency here, or there's like minor things that like every tank kind of wants to like make them more fun to play, but not like, oh my god, what the hell, you need to fix me. They're not Ninja Samurai Summoner, let's put it that way, the first 3. So I'd agree with that assessment, but they're going to keep looking at, duration of defensive buffs, making adjustments in 5.1. There's even mention of extending a buff timer on Warrior. Some people have specifically mentioned Storm's Eye could really use an extended duration, so that was also mentioned in the Reddit translations briefly. Well, what Storm's Eye wasn't mentioned, but increasing buff durations, whether they be defensive or offensive, is a bit more ambiguous in the other translation, so maybe we'll see that. No guarantee, though. They only mentioned defensive buffs on the official post, so that's going to be the one that we have to take our immediate source from. Question number 8. This is a pretty big spoiler question, so I'm probably not going to go into the actual answer. Shadowbringers was incredible. I was amazed how long it took. It answered some main mysteries, such as the Ascine's objectives, the past the Warriors of Darkness, and the Crystal Exarch. How long have you been thinking about this story? I'll tell you right now that just the general answer was 3.4. They had the beginning workings of the Shadowbringers plot, but they hadn't really thought it all the way through yet, and now all that stuff has come to fruition because they've decided to tie up some of the key points that they established in Final Fantasy XIV's history, including the events of 3.x, as well as even going back before 2.x. Question number 9. When riding the trolley in Amarang, I was amazed that the tracks were going through the same hill leading towards Camp Horizon in the source. I'd like to hear more on the other fields that connect the source to the first, and they are... it would be a spoiler to talk about it now, basically, but they will be going into that a lot more in the 5.x series, the connections between locations on the source and locations on the first, and similarities between the two, yet, of course, differences between the two as well. I thought there are a lot of cool-looking things that combine the system and lore, such as how the Crystal Exarch calls forth heroes, and Feoul taking on the role of retainers. How did these ideas come to life? Oda-san comes to them, and Oda-san and Ishikawa-san and Suzuki-san are all going to be at PAX West or Gamescom, and so they're all going to be doing, covering topics such as these there. But there was a lot of discussions about it. How are they going to cross over things from the first and the source? And that's how Feoul was born, essentially, to fill that purpose. And then he basically just says, please wait for Gamescom and PAX West, because there'll be a lot more discussion there. And people who are more knowledgeable, probably, who actually worked on it at its core, will be available to talk about those things there. This was about emotions during the main scenario. They just said that they've been working on that stuff through 4.x, and that Ishikawa will, again, probably talk about it in finer details at PAX West. Will we be able to use trusts in future main scenario dungeons? Some people want to get some of the existing ones back in there, but they also want characters like Estinian and Hien. They said that for the main scenario, as long as the main scenario has a dungeon, you won't have to worry about leveling them. You'll be able to use it for a first completion style thing. And that they'll be doing that going forward. Now, if a dungeon is not part of the main scenario, though, do not expect trust accessibility for it. However, they also have a ton of other ideas, fighting the Primals, changing Castra Meridianum and Praetorium into 4-player instances, fighting along like Grand Company leaders like Raoban for those older instances back in A Realm Reborn, which there's some big news about A Realm Reborn in here. They can't possibly do them all. They have so many ideas that they want to do, but in 5.1, just next main scenario dungeon, you can do it with trust. But at least they're giving us some other ideas of things that they are considering for older content as well as existing content. So were the sandwiches from the main scenario handmade by the Exarch? See, there's always got to be a Peaches question in here, and he's like, I don't know, just eat them. So we can move on to the next one. I love Emmett Selk. Are there any plans to further dive into his past? And they're like, yeah, we've only seen one perspective so far, so we got some surprises in store for you. That's going to be a good one. And actually, I'm excited about that one. Yoshi P, which of the main protagonists in Shadowbringers is your favorite? He really liked Renar, that he cared so deeply for Ishtola, and through him we can see another side of Ishtola's personality. His voice actor was amazing. He also liked Thancred's comments and his battle against Ranjit. And Urian J, there's a scene where he comforts another character, where he gets to show his gentler side, as well as touch on the burdens he's carried up until now. Remembering that scene still moves me, and again, I felt the voice acting was amazing. Question 16, before all the music tracks were amazing, I'd like to know if there are any songs that were challenging to compose. It was originally released the first time in the teaser trailer, the very first time that they played the Shadowbringers theme. I remember Soken mentioning that too. He was very, very nervous about it, and then they had like a slightly different version in Paris, and then the final version, so you had to make 3 different versions of the Shadowbringers song and make them all work for the various trailers. I remember him mentioning that at the previous fan festivals as well. In the second Encyclopedia Eorzea, we see Amdapor as the images made from transcendent beings from another plane. Was this referring to the Sin Eaters of the first? Something that we've talked about a lot, and I remember somebody mentioning this when we had Ethos on, if I'm not mistaken, for State of the Realm. And all they really wanted to say is, we want you to look back at the lore book after we reveal stuff on the first and go, that makes sense. That makes sense, because you definitely go back to the lore books after the fact and go, huh, I wonder about this. They said that's very on purpose. So take that however you will. When are we planning to release next Beast Tribe Quest? 5.1. For anyone who doesn't know, Beast Tribe Quests are in 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3. Usually right on the patch, not in like a delayed patch like we get for some other content. Also, when the initial fan festivals were all done for Shadowbringers, they, under the Beast Tribe slides, listed the fairies, the Numo, and the dwarfs. So we're under the assumption those are the 3 Beast Tribes, even though you may not see them as beasts, like the equivalent, the daily hub quests, I guess we'll call them, for Shadowbringers over the course of its duration. They could change it, but those are the ones we've been led to believe will be the case for Beast Tribe quests. After trying out Eden, I was shocked by the Warrior of Light's imagination. Yeah, we all were. Trust me. I like so I like watching Yoshi P try to quantify what happened, and I think for Leviathan we're probably kind of on the same page. You know, Leviathan, you know, he was attacking from 2 locations, so mix that with a little bit of Shinryu, and then, you know, maybe the Wandering Minstrel messed with his head a little bit because he made him do some different stuff. But then for Titan, he's like, Titan is likely due to Thancred bringing up the topic of falling, which probably get mixed in with explosions and goblin tanks. So we just couldn't keep our memories in one place. We're like, oh yeah, Titan, but oh, goblins. The warrior like this, he can't keep his focus. There's too many memories being merged into one. I mean, that makes more sense than anything else we've said. Everything I say is like, oh, I remember Titan. He hit like a truck. Not literally. Come on now. Okay. Moving on to that, we've barely even scraped the surface on these questions so far. The Lahi from the Raktika Greatwood BGM is stuck in my head. What are the lyrics? Soken says he doesn't know the lyrics. He said, I don't know. And in the unofficial translation, he said, I don't know, Koji asked me to throw the Lahi in there for some reason. I don't know. So, Soken doesn't even know. Thanks, man. Whatever. Anyway, moving on. Main scenario is great, but so are the Crystalline Mean quests. Will they be continued in the future? They're complete for now, but if there's enough requests, they might do something further with the Crystalline Mean. But they don't have any specific plans for it. Okay, it's a pretty straightforward answer. The new Automaton Queen skill for Machinist is cool, but the job quest doesn't really do a great job of explaining it. He said he actually thinks Oda-san's probably going to talk about it at Gamescom, but Yoshi P subscribes to the theory, and he saw this theory on Twitter about how the turret likely was combined The turret tried its best and turned into an automaton. I saw in the unofficial translation that the theory was more so that, like, it was the combination of a turret and a training dummy. It was like a weaponized training dummy, essentially. So, like, all the training dummies were always beating on. I like that one. I like that theory that it's a training dummy that was weaponized, because that's pretty funny to me. We'll find out more, hopefully, from Oda-san at Gamescom. The Emerald area in the Tempest is very beautiful. There's a very tall building. Will we ever be able to visit it? And he said the entire city isn't real. So, no, we haven't even made it. So, no, this might be, you know, maybe it's limitations of whoever made that building. And the development team. It's all right. It's a no. It's a no. Just accept it for what it is. If there's a way to tell the difference, is there a way to tell the difference between male and female dwarfs when wearing helmets? Somebody told me there is, and he said no. And Yoshida's like, no, because there's no need to. So, no, apparently. Question 25. What does Miol taste like? Peaches. He said he likes to think it tastes like bread. So, that's what he thinks. He thinks it's probably like a sweet bread. What do you think Miol tastes like? Moving on. Anyway. The Protectors of the Woodside quest in Raktica mention corals and Namazu. Although corals can be seen on the first, I haven't seen any Namazu. Will they be appearing at a later time? There's a possibility Namazu are on the first, but whether or not they survived is another story. But Oda-san will know the truth. Yeah, that's true. I mean, Namazu should have existed on the first. There's no reason they wouldn't have. It's just a matter of did they survive? And that we don't have an answer to. Is the dancer in the opening trailer Lena? I'd like to see her dancing while wearing the artifact set. The rough sketch of the opening movie was first drawn up in September of 2017. This time we only intended to show the new jobs and new races. However, it seems like over the course of development, the main scenario quest, they made Lena similar to the character shown in the video. So we didn't intend for it to be that way, but I don't know how the lore will be in the future. So in other words, it was just, it's kind of like how in the Heavensward trailer, there's an army of Hrace Velgers. Don't think about it too much, essentially. Question 28. Do the loot oh, this is a fun one. Due to the loot changes in Eden Savage, we're seeing disagreements between pickup groups over the loot. For someone like me without a static, I'm worried that I won't be able to get any gear aside from exchange items. Do you have any plans to adjust the loot system? Yoshida's like, but on the other hand, you could also win all the loot. So it's quite difficult. And then someone else would be asking this question. Come on. In terms of sheer probability, the current system should come out on top. It's better than having item drops for a role no one plays, so I think for now I'd like to leave things as is. So currently no changes expected for the Eden Savage loot. Now in the unofficial translation, he goes into a bit more detail and talks about how comparatively to praying your item even drops every week to then winning the role on it after the fact, it should come out about equal considering the sheer density of the amount of items that have dropped now versus items that used to drop back then. I don't personally agree with that assessment, but that's the answer, and I can't provide anything else to you guys. Just keep providing feedback if you are someone who is not a fan of the current Eden Savage loot table. With the greed only for the 24-mans, they fixed that pretty quick, but this, less people do Savage than 24-mans, so feedback may need to be a little bit more constant if people do feel that way. Question 29, with the addition of more jobs, it's become harder to get the desired weapon drops from Extreme Trials. I would like the system to be changed to something similar as those of Eden. I'm assuming they mean Eden Normal, because we just got through talking about how Eden Savage was not desirable. But we discussed this before 5.0. We thought perhaps the current difficulty of Extreme Trials, you probably see what you want within 10 clears. But when I personally ran it 15 times, I didn't see what I wanted, so maybe it's not good enough is how I currently feel. I kind of get this because essentially every time they add new jobs to the game, every primal has its like the length of clearing it to get to kind of artificially extended in a sense. You're less likely to see your individual drop before the 10 totem mark. So then, but then you have the 10 totems, you're like, okay, but I don't want to have to spend the 10 totems on this. I want to spend the 10 totems on the other thing. Or you spend the 10 totems and then you don't see the second drop you want and it's another 10 totems. So it's just because the pool gets more diluted, not only are the odds of you seeing your drop in 10 kills going down, but if you wanted every item, theoretically, that's 170 totems, so it keeps going up by 10 for every job. So I kind of understand what he's saying here. I actually don't see much of an issue with the way it currently is, but I do agree that in these extreme cases, it can feel pretty bad. No pun intended there, by the way. On top of that, if you want the mount, at maximum, you need 269 totems to get everything. So, well, maybe we'll see some changes to this going forward. And I'm specifically talking about the weapon ones, by the way, because we see very few accessory bosses. It's like 1 per expansion. So, yeah, maybe we'll see changes to this. I don't know. He didn't seem to be too dead set in actually making adjustments to that in particular. Question 30, do you have any plans to ease Eureka weapon upgrade so it can be done with a smaller part of your solo? Yes, they are currently discussing stuff. They haven't made exactly the decision of what to do, but they are considering adding new Logos actions to make playing solo easier. So the only issue with that is Logos actions are only currently available in 2 of the 4 Eureka zones. And by the way, if you haven't tried soloing Eureka since 5.0 came out, even before 5.0, the difficulty hasn't really changed all that much. It's been possible, but it's really, really, really tedious to do. Bosses do scale to the amount of people in the zone. So if you're the only one fighting the boss, you can reasonably kill it as long as you have the sustain to do it. But it doesn't feel great, especially in Onimos and Pagos. Pyros and Hydatos, other than Providence Watcher, are actually not too bad. But Onimos and Pagos actually need quite a bit of help, in my opinion. So they're gonna change it. This was obviously coming. It's just a matter of what they actually decide to do. Do they add Logos actions to the previous zones? Do they add these new Logos actions on top of that? We'll have to see what they actually decide to do when it all is set in stone. 31, is it a bug that we can change our direction during jump? Is this going to get fixed? I believe there's various opinions regarding this one, but I personally am enjoying this, so I'd like it to be untouched. Dragoons can currently change their direction during jump. This becomes sort of a necessary technique. We may have to disable it. The normal jump won't be changed. Is that an issue? I mean, I've seen Dragoons do this, but I don't. It seems fine to me, personally. I don't see. I mean, even the Dragoon themselves says they like it, so it's like, sure, cool. If it's cool, just leave it. They listen, in all the cutscenes, they literally jump. They create platforms of ether and jump all over the place. Just lore accurate. There you go. Question 32. When going through fates in new areas, I cap bicolor gemstones quickly. Can you increase the cap? Currently under consideration. Because yes, they think it's very tedious to have to go back and spend it at 500 every time. So I'd expect the cap to go up here for bicolor gemstones. Will we see Veer and Hrothgar's and company squadrons? Currently being considered. Nothing more we can really say there. Do you have any plans to add a feature to recruit or search for free companies? Also community groups other than free companies and link shells. Currently coming up with a new feature called circles, which will be less restrictive than link shells. We have too many different social things for this. You can create a circle for certain activities, which you can register for, and it'll send you notifications. You could also use it like some kind of customer list. This will be added in 5.1, and we're going to cover it in the next live. There's so many different social options. Like, it's already hard enough to keep circles, links. So what the... So many things! Like, it's just, I don't know. Maybe when they explain it, it'll be explained better. It's just, do we really need another chat channel again, like another one on top of the ones we already have? The link shells, crossword link shells, FCs. Do we need? I mean, maybe people do, and I'm just ignorant. But I don't know. It's just so much verbiage for here is a way you can talk to people. I don't know. Are there any plans for a new deep dungeon 5.x? That's a secret. I'm betting on Ronkin Ruins, just for the record, for later. Ronkin Ruins is my #1 prediction. Number 36, the beard on the hero and the patch notes in the benchmark is really cool. The stubble. Do you have any plans to give this beard as an option? And they said they were actually trying to make it work, but that it pretty much only works on Huron male face patterns for the time being. But they said that given enough time, they can make it work. So there's a possibility of the stubble somewhere down the line. So, question 37, use the Fantasia to switch to Vieira, but as a special race, the number of hairstyles for Vieira and Hrothgar seems limited. Do you plan to add more in the future? He answers this like it was dumb to even ask it. Of course we plan on adding more. So please wait for future patches. So if you're looking for more hairstyles for Hrothgar and Vieira, yes, they are getting more. However, keep in mind that when they add hairstyles for Hrothgar and Vieira, they will be Hrothgar and Vieira exclusive. They're not adding like random hairstyles from other jobs, and the ones that the Hrothgar and Vieira get will probably be exclusive to them, so the other races won't have them as well. And also, because they're race specific, don't expect them to have nearly as many options as the other jobs, collectively. Question 38. Please allow us to do the Great Hunt Extreme in an undersized party. Being worked on. So in the future, you will be able to do it. In Tempest, the music doesn't change even when you enter battle. I imagine this is intentional since the large-scale fate changes the music, but I'm curious the reason. It's an atmospheric thing. They'll be talking more about it at PAX West, but that's pretty much it. It's a very atmospheric choice they decided to make. Let's see. Will there be an extreme version of the last boss battle 5.1? Anyone who's been around long enough knows that. So if you were wondering about that, 5.1. Probably drop 465 weapons if I had to predict it now. The level sync feature for side quests was very helpful. Will you add it in older side quests? And they said that's a lot of data to rework. New Game Plus is currently in development, requires a lot of resources, so they're actually focused on New Game Plus before going back and making level syncing possible for old side quests. Big news though! We're working on adjusting the A Realm Reborn main scenarios to be more compact, and we're aiming for 5.3. It's happening. Now, whether or not it actually happens in 5.3 is one thing. Aiming for a patch and it releasing in that patch, we know are classically different things in reality. But it's happening. One way or the other, it is now on their priority list and is something that is actively being worked on and not just discussed. So, that's a pretty big piece of news to come out of that question. And with that, we have to move on to the next one. Question 42, would like to know more about endgame content for Disciples of Hander Land, the restoration of Ishgard. They said that those are going to be topics in future live letters. And also, there was a question regarding getting apartments in other areas other than where we have them now. The Amarat and Crystarium themed apartments. He said it might be fun to make apartments themed that way. Not there, but themed like them. And so we may see those in the future as well. Question 43, the amount of... This one burns. This one burns bad. I feel like the amount of time effort required to level desynthesis and returns don't match. Do you have plans to make any major changes to the desynth system? So there's going to be large-scale changes to Hand and Land in 5.1 regardless. Obviously coming with the restoration of Ishgard, there has to be adjustments. Desynthesis rates will be changed to 100%, and there will be no need to level them up. It is something you will use when you have a surplus of items. That is the current plan that they have, and they will provide more details when they have solidified them. So desynthesis is dead to me now, because it was a good moneymaker. Now, I will say this. That's one thing, the statement they've made there. I will say this, and as much as this doesn't really mitigate this factor of it, if they make it so you at least need to be crafter leveled to do it, then I'm kind of okay. Like if they make it so you, because right now you can get a crafter to 30 and then level desynth all the way up to 450. If they make it so you just need to have the crafter at 80 to desynth 80 items, it's still a sacrifice, but I'd be okay with that. But just outright removing the entire leveling system that's been around since it initially released and just going with the 100%, I'm not down with that. In particular, I'm not down with that. that's all I can really say. Question 44. I feel like the amount of resources required to craft for Weaver recipes is way higher than others. Are there going to be adjustments made? And the very quick answer is yes. Adjustments will be made to crafting recipes that are considered not well balanced. Nothing more to add there. As a gatherer, it's frustrating when monsters appear near gathering nodes, especially in the Raktika Greatwoods near Sweet Marjoram. Would adjustments be possible? They're actually they're thinking of making some fundamental changes to stealth, even making it so that if you're on a mount as a crafter or gatherer. Now, they specifically said in the Reddit unofficial translation that crafters or gatherers would not get aggro when mounted. This is implying getting no aggro at all. So we'll see which one actually ends up coming to fruition, if this is just a largely truncated, I guess, version of the statement that was made, or if the other one was pulling some sort of assumptions, because we can never know, because there's always certain differences between the two. So it's just a matter of waiting till the content actually releases, and then we can see how it actually turns out. Question 46. My main jobs are all battle related. Whenever a new raid is introduced, I ask others to help with melting materia. The success rate is based on luck, and there are times it requires a lot of time. Feel bad for the person helping. Could you consider adding this feature through NPCs? And Yoshida's like, I don't know what you're looking for, but we're considering further ways to make overmelding happen quicker. But leveling up a crafter isn't that difficult, so just level them up once everything's calmed down a little bit. We understand that the fun of crafting is hard to convey, so we'd like to make changes to ensure more people can enjoy crafting. In other words, just go level the thing. Okay, so because I'm recording this live on Twitch for YouTube, I'm going to take this excerpt from the Reddit translation. There will be many changes. The success rate will be 100%. The seesawing when leveling multiple classes will be removed. See, that doesn't really, that's what I read from the Reddit translation. And it doesn't really say, neither of them are clear. This one literally says, the official translation for that decent thing, going back up, literally says, no need to level up skills. That's very direct. So again, I'm just going to wait to see what they actually tell us regarding decent in an official live letter and whatnot. So, moving on. Yeah, he says just level up your crafters if you want to overmelt. Or ask someone, either keep asking somebody else, and we will make it faster when you do ask somebody else, so it doesn't take as much time. And they've already done a good job of that so far, this expansion. But also, you can just level your own crafters. You know, you could just do that as well if you really want to. So that's his answer. Moving on. With the addition of more jobs, the main arm section of my armory chest is getting constantly full. Can you increase the amount of slots? I mean, this is always rings, main like people always want more armory slots. I think it's reasonable. It's not that they won't do it in the future, but it needs to be done very carefully. It's the same answer we get every time. Data is a very, very real problem when there's so much information that needs to be stored and needs to be transferred between areas. We've gotten this answer a million times, so I'm not going to go over it too much, but they may do it in the future. They're always open to do it. It's just a matter of can they and, you know, when they. Question 48. There are a lot of interesting pop-up dialogue boxes, but they're sometimes hard to read. Would it be possible to change the size or have the text be displayed? The way they're designed is currently on purpose, but even Yoshida thinks that on the really high resolutions, it's way too hard to read, so they probably need to adjust them. Making them manually adjustable is one thing, but if they might just increase the size of them altogether, they haven't really decided that yet. But he agrees that on high resolutions, they can be hard to read. I love Feawool. Can I change my scholar to look like, my scholar fairy to look like Feawool? He's like, I don't know if she'll listen to you. You might have to, she might not heal you unless you solve riddles for 7 days and 7 nights. So no. Anyway. Obviously a bit of a sarcastic answer followed by a very direct no. Pretty much. Are there any plans to make it easier to tell if an attack is magical or physical? So they said that they've answered this before, and the only reason why it's a bit difficult to do is because sometimes they change it like last second. And then they need to consider changing all the visuals to make it more apparent that it's physical or magical. So they're not intentionally trying to withhold information, and they don't want to have to make a sacrifice because they last second decided to change a tank buster or a skill to a different type. And now they have to change its visual display entirely to make it match that. That could cause it to take, that could cause patches to get delayed. That's their main reason now. So it's not that they don't want to, but they don't have the solution yet to do it smoothly, I suppose. Yeah, they could just make it say that in the combat log. I hate looking through the combat log, but it'd be nice. Question 51, please add a preview for battle voices in the character creation menu. We hear them quite often while playing, so I'd like to make sure I pick the right one. It'll take some time, but they like to discuss the possibilities. Okay, that seems like a perfectly fair answer and question and answer. Question 52, I find myself ending up with a lot of equipment with low durability. Would it be possible to add a feature that repairs all my items in the armory chest at once? Just repair whenever possible. He's literally just saying, just go repair. Just don't try to do it all at once. Just do it when you can. And good luck. Moving on. That's it. That's the whole answer. Sometimes when I unlock a new action, I forget to add it to my hotbar. Please make it easier to tell whether an action is already placed on the hotbar or not. We made it so you can add actions to your hotbar before you unlock them, so do that feature. Yeah, but then they still get added to your hotbar even though you've already added them to your hotbar. So it doesn't really actually fix the problem. But, well, no. So the question's weird because it gets added to your hotbar automatically. And you can manually add it. Alright, I'm moving on. I don't understand the point of that question. Anyway, do you have any plans to add crafted primal weapons for Gunbreaker or Dancer? They don't have, no. The answer is no. They might do it slowly between patches, but it's not a priority. He won't say we're doing it or we'll do it, but that somebody might decide to do it. And if they do, great. If they don't, it's not where their priorities are right now. Question 55, I love the gear the NPCs are wearing in Shadowbringers. Do you have any plans to add Ishtola or the Exarch's robes as optional items? He wants Ishtola's outfit, so we'll have that made soon. See you on the Mog Station. But yeah, it'll happen. We'd love to see the addition of dwarven furnishing for Lalafels. This should be possible, but let me make sure. I said that what they should do is they should allow you to place a small dwarven house outside on the yard of large houses. And it's basically send the Lalafels to the doghouse. That's what they should do. Question 57. Would it be possible to remove unique traits from rings so you can equip 2 of the same ring? So we actually had a big discussion about this on the live stream. Because this is specifically so like if you have like, you know, a token ring has better stats and you're like, I'd rather just have 2 of this than have to use the crappy savage ring or whatever. And we have rings in the game that aren't unique, but specifically there's a very specific subset of them that are unique. He says that it becomes very difficult to manage, and I could sit here and talk all the mumbo jumbo about why that may be the case. But he also proposes the idea of removing a ring slot. And that sparked a whole nother discussion. I don't think either of these solutions are easy nor optimal. But, man, do I hate the ring slot in the armory chest. So if they do something, I'll be happy with it either way. That's all I'll really throw in for that one. Question 58. Are there any plans for a housing area or apartments in Novront? It's hard to say because they don't know what's going to happen to the first. Who knows? Also, I think Ishgard's kind of the bigger thing right now. You know, they mentioned that after restoration is done, that, you know, maybe we could live there, very sarcastically, but not to be taken lightly, when Yoshida and Koji said that at one of the fan festivals for Shadowbringers. So I think that's probably a higher priority than getting apartments or housing in Novrent, personally, but who knows? They say, who knows? They're not going to say no. They're going to be like, who knows? That's going to be how the answer works. Please add more varieties of dyes. We don't have many variations of certain colors. This is related to data transfer amount. More palettes might be difficult, but he'll ask. He'll ask on their behalf. Please add a minion of Feoul. And he says, I think it'll be added at some point. I thought player opinion would be more divided, but I'm glad players like them. Yeah, he was like, I thought people are going to hate Feoul, but hey, thanks for liking them. There you go. Next one, weapon designs in 5.0 have been very cool. Cool. Would it be possible to add a furnishing item so we could display them? I think we've asked this before, and there's actually, it was the same reason why mannequins took a very long time to happen. It's because of the way that it's shaped on the player and the way that it's coded in the game makes it very difficult. The axes in which it's actually like placed on a character is very particular to the type of character. It's basically, there's a lot of things. It needs to be kind of like designed from scratch to work with something like a weapon rack. So it's not that it can't be done. It's just not, it's something that takes a lot of resources to get done properly. So they won't say it's impossible, but it's something they have to carefully consider. 62, I'd like to allow my minions to roam around my house. They've asked this before. Yeah, and he even mentions, I've answered this before. It's not something they can really do with the current housing system. They're planning a sort of farm for them. So it sounds like a place where your minions can kind of just run free and do whatever they want. So I'm curious to see how that'll actually end up working. Question 63, let's make the purple trees in Lakeland available as a housing item. Sure, please look forward to it. All right, you're welcome. The purple trees in the Lakeland as a housing item. There was a, I like this one. There was a mysterious singer at the fan festival who was wearing a Byakuya themed kimono. I wonder who. When will this kimono be added to the game? I'd even buy it for 20 million gil. And Yoshida's like, I don't think you can do that. I don't think we can do that. So the Byakuya themed kimono that Yoshida wore when he sung the theme at the various fan festivals, he's like, I don't know that that's gonna be a thing, right? When we do that later, okay. Please add the esthetician to the Crystarium's Inn. They actually considered making Feoul cut your hair, and they were like, I don't think she's gonna be capable of that. So just go back to the source. Stop being lazy. Go back to the source. All right, there you go. Please allow us to confirm help text for fairy actions through scholar actions that activate them. This will be implemented. Yeah, so actually back in all the job related stuff, some of these questions at the end are actually going back to stuff that was initially asked at the beginning. And for this one in particular, the only scholar adjustments it really mentioned was that making the help text for fairy actions more apparent, so that it's clearer to the player. And that's a fair thing to ask for. Let's see. There were lots of cutscenes in the side quest this time, and it demonstrated the quest team's hard work. Do you have any recommended side story quests? He said he was very anxious about the fairies in Ilmeg, would repeat our experience with the Mughals. I'm glad to see we managed to barely avoid that. The side quest I recommended players check out is the one about the dwarf that can't properly greet. Because he's reluctant to accept himself, he's unable to understand his own strength, and made me really feel that these characters truly live in the world. Lolly-ho, friend. Lolly-ho. Question 68. Please set appropriate item level restrictions for dungeons. Currently, it's possible for players to enter even if their item level is far too low to complete the dungeon. Yeah, this has come up. People have asked me about this a lot, and I agree. I feel like it's a very delicate situation, but ultimately, yes, I feel like it would be beneficial. We understand the issue and are discussing it. Simply setting an item level may create new problems, so we're trying to come up with a different solution. So when I read we're trying to come up with a different solution, I was like, well, creating the minimum item level shouldn't be that much of a concern. It's more a concern that you fuck someone's entire dungeon because you didn't want to upgrade gear for 20 fucking levels. Excuse my language. But the other solution, if they're looking for a different one, scaling items up is always a solution, but I don't like that either, because that's just fucking lazy. It's a lot of work on their end for someone who's really fucking lazy on our end. So it would fix the problem, but I don't like it at the same time. And they didn't say that's what they're doing. That's just when I read that, that's what comes to mind. And I don't know if that's the route they're going to take. Who knows? They don't know. We don't know. We'll see. Stop being lazy. Upgrade your gear. Come on now. Question 69, second to last question. With the world visit system now in place, it's harder to see a hunt enemy's actions due to the number of players. Furthermore, the speed at which it gets taken down is much faster, so it's hard to join in casually. I'd like to see something where hunts can only be done by players from home worlds. While this may be an issue now, I think it will gradually calm down, so for now, please think of it as a festival. I think changing it to be homeworld only isn't the way to go about it. Adjusting display priority is also impossible on that scale. Well, it's not impossible, Yoshida, because you do it for some bosses. You just don't, it's harder to do for every boss. Now that being said, yeah, I kind of agree. When interest in hunts dies down a little bit, when we lose instances, that's going to be when you see this be less of a problem. But even still, it doesn't change the fact that means every 2 years. I mean, I guess kind of it's already the case. Stormblood was very similar with hunts disappearing, but that was still within your own home world. So only really populated servers dealt with it. Now every server has to deal with it. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see how it pans out over time. I kind of agree and I kind of disagree in some ways here, but whatever. It's how it is. He's already answered. It's not going to change for the time being. And finally, question 70. Looking forward to the Alliance raid coming in 5.1. I'm curious to see what kind of gear we'll be able to get. Of course, that is the Yorha Dark Apocalypse Near Automata themed raid. Would there be any chance to see the weapons, that we'll see weapons as a reward? I don't mind it being purely for glamour, but I want the katana shown in the art. He actually checked the models for the rewards. He provided some feedback, but he says they're really well made. They're actually making the costumes wearable by both genders, so please look forward to it. There actually is a katana weapon that is currently limited to certain jobs for probably obvious reasons, but they may consider opening it up for more jobs if it's highly requested. Also, they mentioned this during the live letter, but Yokotaro will be joining them for the live letter from the Tokyo Game Show that is going to be between September 12th and 15th. So please look forward to that as well. Among other things that were talked about, that was the end of the actual Q&A. There were, of course, announcements, some pop-up Eorzea cafes, some adjustments being made to the Square Enix cafe, the Battle and Dungeon official guidebook that's launching in Japan September 24th, the official soundtrack of Shadowbringers, which will include 4.4 to 5.0, so starting with, Suzaku and moving all the way through to what we have now, will be available on September 11th, and Suzaku Minion will actually be available with that. It'll be her in her human form, but it's a pretty cool looking minion. On top of that, Final Fantasy XIV, of course, they mentioned will be at Gamescom, and we'll have that panel with World Lore, about World Lore with Oda-san. On top of that, there's the Tokyo Game Show one between the 12th and the 15th of September, and that is when the first 5.1 live letter is going to be. Final Fantasy XIV will also be at the Tokushima Awa Dance Festival in Japan, and there's going to be a fan festival in China. They haven't had Shadowbringers released yet over in China, so they're going to be getting their own fan festival for that in the coming weeks. Actually, I think that's in like a few days. Yeah, that's August 10th. That's in just 3 days from now, pretty much. Anyway, that's it for the announcement. So the next big thing we have to look forward to is going to be patch 5.1 live letters, and of course patch 5.1 itself. Currently predicting 5.1 to be a late October. The very last Tuesday of October is going to be my prediction for the release date for that one. And I'm looking forward to seeing other stuff they have planned for 5.1, because there is a lot of stuff that they have talked about and mentioned for 5.1, but it hasn't come all the way through to fruition. That's going to be a wrap for my YouTube video recording. I am still live on Twitch as I'm recording this, so I'm going to get this pared down, posted over to YouTube along with State of the Realm for the day. Then I'll hang out with my Twitch chat for a little bit, but I've been up since 3 in the morning, so I could probably use something to eat as well. Anyway, be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. And if you have any questions or any clarifications about various outlets that have translated and said different things, be sure to throw those in the comment section of the video below. Twitch chat, let's hang out for a little bit while I take care of these few remaining things, and then I got to get working on those Savage guides. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you for watching again, and until then, take care.